All right, now we're now going to go in and create a strategy map. Strategy maps are part of PerformancePoint Dashboard Designer, and we're covering them in this module because we're going to be using Vizio to create the strategy map. So, that's the decision that we've made. By the way, the strategy map over in PerformancePoint Dashboard Designer is an excellent tool that you want to take a look at. It really communicates your graphics well, and from my point of view, is the best feature of Vizio services that we're going to use. All right, so let's log into the remote server. And here's what we're going to end up with, is this Vizio drawing showing a strategy map. Here's the same information displayed in a strategy scorecard over here, and let me show you the difference. Let's go over to Dashboard Designer, and we're going to take one of the KPIs, and I'm going to change the data mapping, and I'm going to change it from 300 down here. Let's change it to 50, and we'll say OK. And now we're going to go in and we'll save that so we get the value stored. And let's go back over to our strategy map, and we're going to refresh the page and watch the map change. We hope. Bing, 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 bing. Notice this rolled on down, and the effectiveness of this compared to this display over there, in my view, this is much more effective. Also, these strategy maps can get really sophisticated, where a standard scorecard will lose people. The strategy map immediately draws your eyes because of these linkings. So let's go through and create one. I'm going to go ahead and close this page. And the first thing we're going to do is, I've got Vizio up and running, and we're going to just create a blank drawing. You can use any shapes that you want. We're just going to use a blank drawing. It's fine. And I'm going to take an ellipse and drop it over here, and then just selecting that ellipse, I'm going to Control C to copy it, and I'm going to paste it twice, Control V. And now we've got those ellipses, and let me shrink this up just a little bit, so maybe I can get this in here and you can see it a little cleaner. And now we're going to put a connector between them just to draw the eye. So I'm going to go up a dynamic connector, and I'll take that. And we're going to take this over here, and we've got a connector there. And then when the consumer is actually looking at these objectives as they roll on up in the tree, they can see the path. If we had several of these down here, you see we can roll them up and back and forth, and they really get quite excellent. This is a huge deal in Six Sigma. So we've got that because it transfers the information so well. So now that's really all there is to it in Vizio. So I'm going to save, and I want to show you this. I'm going to say File, and I'm going to Save As, and I'm going to save this as a web drawing, just like we did before. And I'm going to call this Strategy Drawing. See, I already have a map, so I got to call it Strategy Drawing. Oops. 1, just for names, fine. And I'll say save. By the way, I just made an error, and I did that on purpose so I can come back in a little bit later and show it to you. So now let's just drop Vizio down, and I've got Dashboard Designer up and running, and I did that in the usual manner. Just again from Athena Group BI, I started using PerformancePoint services, and I clicked Run Dashboard Designer. And so I've got Dashboard Designer up and running. And let's go through, and we're going to create everything from scratch. So in PerformancePoint content, I'm going to right click, and I want New KPI. And a blank KPI is fine. And we're going to go to the Properties page, and I'm going to call this Objective. I don't care. Objective 1. It really just doesn't matter here. I'm just trying to demo this to you. And we'll put it in a new display folder. Objective Strategy. All right, so we got a folder. We put everything in. And now if I come off, there's Objective 1. And now Objective 1, let's go back over to the editor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the values. So our target is, we're going to change the target to 100. And I'm going to change the actual down here to 50, just so I can get a reading. And I'll say OK. Now I've got Objective 1. I'm going to right click on that KPI and copy. I'm going to move to the folder. I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste. And I'm going to change this name to Objective 2. I'll go over to the editor and I'm going to change the data mappings. So I'm going to take the actual and I'm going to change that to 100. And now I've got, obviously I'm going to get a green on back here, which is what I wanted to have happen. So now I've got 2 KPIs and we need another KPI. We're going to right click, we're going to go new KPI, and this time we're going to create an objective KPI. And if you will, remember the objective KPIs are the roll-ups. So I'm going to say fine in here, and it has no calculation value, and that's fine. I'm just going to change the name of it to all objectives. Just so I can identify what we're doing down here. Display folder is fine. Now we're going to create a scorecard to hold these KPIs. Scorecard, and we're going to go with just a blank scorecard. I don't need a data connection for this. So I'm going to say OK. And we'll go over to the properties page, and I'm going to call this Objective Scorecard. OK. And back over to the editor. And now let's drag and drop our KPIs. Here's all objectives, and that, remember that's a objective KPI. I'm going to take and just drop that right here. And by the way, if I call update, you get nothing. That's because it's meant to hold, an objective KPI holds children. So I'm going to take objective 1 and I'm going to drop it here. I'm going to look for this tooltip last child. You see I got the negative here, so the roll up expands, and now objective is a child of all objectives, and I'll take objective 2 and I'm going to make that a sibling of objective 1. If I can get the tooltip, pop on up, and now when I call update, see I've got some values in here. So let's go through and we're going to create a dashboard to hold this scorecard. New dashboard, and all I want is a 2-column, very basic, and I'll say OK. And we'll call this objectives. And that's fine. And I'll put it into the dashboard document library, which is fine. And I really don't care about the master page. That's fine also. So now let's go over to the editor tab. And we're going to expand out scorecards, expand out objective strategy. Take our objective scorecard and drop it right here. All right. Now let's save all. When I say save all, it's also going to ask me to save the designer workspace, which I don't care about. But if I call cancel, notice everything else saves. So now if we go over to this dashboard and deploy to SharePoint, give it a second. Okay, it deploys, the dashboard deploys page 1, and here's my scorecard. Now, we don't need that anymore, so let's drop it back and go back over into Dashboard Designer. Now in Dashboard Designer, we're going to go into the folder again. I'm going to right click and I'm going to new, and this time I want to come in and I want to create a report. And now it's asking me what type of report, and I'm going to go Strategy Map. I'll say OK. And down here, it's asking me where to create it, and I'll just call Create Report. I'm sorry, I moved the data feed down to the objective scorecard, and now I'll call Finish. And now it wants me, and we got to give it a name. You'll notice over in here. So let's call this Strategy Objective Report, just so we have one. And now we're going to go in here, and it wants to go to the Edit tab over in here, and you notice this Edit Strategy Map. I'm going to call Edit Strategy Map, and it's asking me to import a Vizio file. And when I say import Vizio file, we're looking on the desktop down here, and I have this one, which is, by the way, is the wrong one. Ours was called Objective. What I've got down here is I'm showing you this is the old data format that it's actually looking for. So to make this work, I'm going to cancel here. I'm going to go back over to Vizio, and this time File, Save As. I like that strategy drawing one, but we're not going to save it as a web drawing here. We're going to save it as a drawing. All right? People run into this all the time, and I know it's a little confusing. So now we're back over here, and when I go Import Vizio File, and I go to my desktop, if you notice there, it wasn't showing up in the browser. That's because I just saved it into a folder. So if I go into my desktop again, and now I'll save, and now back over here, and if I call refresh, there's strategy mapping 1, drawing 1, which I want. All right, now this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect it. So when I go into this connect shape, I know you can't see that. Let me pull down here. You see what pops up is my scorecard, and I'm going to take all objectives here and just drag it down here. If I click on that and then click on all objectives, she should map. Now if I come down here and take objective 1, and sometimes this is a little buggy. Oh, wait a minute now. Let me get out of this. Sorry, I had to go through and close it. It was not working. So again, I just opened and I said connecting. I opened my Vizio file again, re-imported it, and I selected the shape and double-clicked up here on the KPI. Now I'll do this. We'll select that shape, and we'll make that objective 1. If you can see, that turned yellow. And I'm going to take that shape, double-click it. Green, that's good. And I'll call close, and now I'm going to call apply, and there we go. We have a strategy map in here. Now we're going to come in and let's save it. Let's switch back over to our dashboard right here. We're going to take reports and expand out the strategy objective report, drop it, and now we're going to redeploy SharePoint, and you've got your strategy maps in here. Again, you notice the mapping of the colors. Now let's go back over to Dashboard Designer and go into the Objective KPI and go to the editor. All right, and data mappings, this one was 50 and the target was 100. I'm going to change this out, and we'll go in here to 90. Not a big deal. I just want to get a color change. And I'll save. Switch back over to my strategy map, and now I'm going to refresh the page. All right, and I think I forgot to save. Just a second. Okay, I didn't forget to save here. You'll see the problem here is I didn't change the value enough. So let's go back over to Dashboard Designer and change the values. So back over here, Objective 1, and here's my actual, and here's my target. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to go over. So I'll go 110 and I'll say OK, and now I save, and this should give it to us. But let's see. We'll go back over here to page 1, and again we'll call refresh, and that gave it to us as it moved it on up in here, these objectives and this strategy map. And that's all there is to creating a strategy map and then deploying it out here and within this web part that you've got. And this is a very, very effective business intelligence and reporting management tool.